upholding scientific research and discovery in respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
We signed a climate convention on the importance of economic instruments and free markets were included in this mammoth Agenda 21 document and the Rio Declaration. Let me be clear on one fundamental point. The United States fully intends to be the world's preeminent leader in protecting the global environment.
Coming up, Technocracy News. Greetings, this is Patrick Wood with Technocracy News and Trends. Today is June 12, 2019. I want to start out by making an apology for posting an article a couple of days ago called "Merkel Admits German Multiculturalism Has Utterly Failed." And come to find out, this story actually was published in 2010, originally in the Guardian newspaper in Great Britain. But it was apparently mistakenly included in a recent RSS feed as if it had just been posted. I considered just deleting the article altogether. And then I thought, no, the article was actually true at the time, and it's still true. It's just 9 years old. So we'll leave it stand, and I posted a note at the top of the article that says this story was originally published in 2010, but it apparently was mistakenly included, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll leave the story stand, but keep that in mind if you read it again, that it is an old story. Today we're going to look at some different things. Number one story is 6G. Just when you thought it was time to get worried about 5G, all of a sudden 6G begins to show its head in the mix. That will be the next iteration of wireless communications, 6G. And research efforts are ramping up around the world. Several companies now have established 6G study groups to begin to flesh out the technology. It's going to be another quantum leap beyond 5G. You might figure that anyway. So if indeed 5G is just a stepping stone to 6G, then hold on to your seat. This next iteration will wrap in artificial intelligence plus its instantaneous connections that will enable ad hoc networks to be created on the fly wherever they're needed to coordinate the interaction of things, as in the network of things. The article starts out, mobile phone technology has changed the way humans understand and interact with the world and each other. It is hard to think of a technology that has more strongly shaped 21st century living. Indeed, that's true. The latest technology, the fifth generation mobile standards, or 5G, is currently being deployed in select locations around the world. And that raises an obvious question. What factors will drive the development of the sixth generation of mobile technology? How will 6G differ from 5G, and what kinds of interactions and activity will it allow that won't be possible with 5G? Today we get an answer of sorts, thanks to the work of Razvan Andrei Stoica and Giuseppe Abreu at Jacobs University, Bremen in Germany. These guys have mapped out the limitations of 5G and the factors they think will drive the development of 6G. Their conclusion is that artificial intelligence will be the main driver of mobile technology and that 6G will be the enabling force behind an entirely new generation of applications for machine intelligence. 6G is predicted at this point to be able to offer even faster connection speeds, up to 1 terabit per second. That's almost inconceivable. That's beyond instant. It's amazing. But what kind of transformative improvements could it offer? The answer, according to Stoica, is that it will enable rapidly changing collaborations on vast scales between intelligent agents solving intricate challenges on the fly and negotiating solutions to complex problems. Take the problem of coordinating self-driving vehicles through a major city. That's a significant challenge given that some 2.7 million vehicles enter a city like New York every day. The self-driving vehicles of the future will need to be aware of their location, their environment, and how it is changing, and other road users such as cyclists, pedestrians, and other self-driving vehicles. Wow. Well, 6G is already being envisioned. I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the future. Meantime, 5G is rolling out. The antennas are being put in place. The next story has to do with China and smart cities. I'll note at first that there is no escape from digital slavery. China now reveals that, quote, most citizens are required to download apps on their phones that let authorities monitor what they look at and track their movements. This is a new twist to China surveillance, but it's an interesting one. Earlier this year, a U.S. congressional committee commissioned a report on China's development of smart cities, with a particular focus on whether they were smarter than their American counterparts. Now, I believe here, by the way, that we have a difference in view on what smart city is between China and the United States. We might have one view, they have another, but just because they use the word smart doesn't mean that it's functionally equivalent. The U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, USCC, request for submissions was revealing because it showed that despite the hype, not much is known about the fruits of China's efforts to build such cities. Smart cities are highly digitally connected and use the latest technology to manage services. Of course, we knew that. About 500 of the roughly 1,000 smart cities being built worldwide are in China, according to Chinese state media, government figures, and estimates from Deloitte. Under a 5-year plan to the end of 2020, the Chinese government expects $74 billion of public and private investment in these cities. Yet, while scattered futuristic pilot examples can be found, from intelligent lighting and power grids to smart traffic management, there's little evidence that this grand vision is dramatically improving the lives of the masses. Instead, it appears that the bulk of the resources poured into smart city development has gone into improving surveillance of Chinese citizens by pervasive domestic security services. For nearly a decade, China has spent more on internal security than on its defense budget. Put another way, the Communist Party spends more on monitoring its own people than on guarding against foreign threats. It is very clear that surveillance has a significant element in China's conception of smart cities, said Roger Kremers, an expert on Chinese law and technology at Leiden University in the Netherlands. This involves across-the-board surveillance that is partly political and partly about mechanizing ordinary street-level policing. The security apparatus uses a vast network of cameras, facial, and even gait recognition, along with artificial intelligence and cloud computing, to identify and track many of China's 1.34 billion people. Apart from ubiquitous cameras, most citizens are required to download apps on their phones that let the authorities monitor what they look at and track their movements. Viewing content that the Communist Party deems inappropriate can land someone in one of the gulags that has sprung up in the recent years, which now hold as many as 2 million Muslims, according to estimates from the U.S. State Department. And I might add, it goes beyond just 2 million Muslims, of course. There's many other people in gulags in China as well that went there for re-education, and it wasn't a voluntary move on the parts of the people that went there. The article also notes towards the end, with some of the most sophisticated surveillance and control technology in the world, Chinese suppliers are increasingly exporting it, not only to authoritarian states, but also even to some advanced democracies, particularly in Europe. Well, it's also coming to the United States as well. So in conclusion, while China promotes itself as being the leader in smart city technology, what they really mean is that they're the leader in domestic surveillance. And this, of course, we know to be true. So their hype that they are building smart cities to outdo the United States is nonsense. They're spending more money on surveilling their own citizens than they are on their own defense budget. The last article has to do with facial recognition, slightly related to what's going on in China. A human rights lawyer has declared that facial recognition is arsenic in the water of democracy. Well, that's absolutely true. One critic of social engineering and digital slavery, a.k.a. Technocracy, suggests that, quote, mass surveillance has a chilling effect that distorts public behavior. Indeed, the world has little time left to reverse this trend. This article says, automated facial recognition poses one of the greatest threats to individual freedom and should be banned from use in public spaces, according to the director of the campaign group Liberty. Martha Spurrier, a human rights lawyer, said the technology has such fundamental problems that, despite police enthusiasm for the equipment, its use on the street should not be permitted. She said, "I don't think it should ever be used. It is one of, if not the, greatest threat to individual freedom, partly because of the intimacy of the information it takes and hands to the state without your consent and without even your knowledge, and partly because you don't know what is done with that information. Police in England and Wales have used automated facial recognition to scan crowds for suspected criminals in trials in city centers, at music festivals, sports events, and elsewhere. San Francisco recently became the first U.S. city to ban police and other agencies from using automated facial recognition, following widespread condemnations of China's use of technology to impose control over millions of people there. While deployed in public spaces, automated facial recognition units use a camera to record faces in a crowd. The images are then processed to create a biometric map of each person's face based on measurements of the distance between their eyes, nose, mouth, and jaw. Each map is then checked against a watch list containing the facial maps of suspected criminals. Spurrier added, "I think it's pretty salutary that the world capital of technology has just banned this technology. We should sit up and listen when San Francisco decides that they don't want this on their streets. It goes far above and beyond what we already have, such as CCTV and stop and search. It takes us into uncharted, invasive state surveillance territory where everyone is under surveillance. By its nature, it is a mass surveillance tool." She said a lack of such strong governance and oversight could allow the police to roll out live facial recognition by stealth without a meaningful debate on whether the public wanted it or not. The technology was developing so fast, she said, that government was failing to keep up. She concludes this is a real sense of technological determination that is often pushed by the big corporations, but also by law enforcement and by government. The surveillance society, of course, in the United States is growing by leaps and bounds. We've noted multiple times that police departments and law enforcement across the country have almost no regulations in place that would limit their use of facial recognition technology. And of course, the one segment of society that really sees a benefit in this is law enforcement. Well, of course they would, but it's not counterbalanced with any view of the Constitution or of the rights of privacy to American citizens. So they continue to expand and people continue to accept it. Cities and counties and other local regulatory bodies should wake up and smell the coffee on this and say, no, we're not going to do this here. Any city police department, of course, answers not only to the mayor, but to the city council. So if a city council says we're not going to do this, then the police department simply doesn't do it. That's what's happening in San Francisco, by the way. So this could happen anywhere in America. Any community could stand up and say, nope, we're not going to do this. And that's why I say it's up to citizens across our nation to stand up and take responsibility for their own local communities. Don't expect anybody else is going to come in and save you, because they probably won't. But it's always been the American way for every local community, whether it's a large city or small city or just an area or a county, it's always been up to the individual citizens that live there to take care and monitor and plan for the future in those communities. It's nobody else's responsibility but ours. Well, I'm Patrick Wood for Technocracy News and Trends. Catch you next time.